I just discovered why in Japan a car that won't start can be running like new again in minutes, while here we send it straight to the shop and end up paying bills that hurt more than the breakdown. The secret is in 17 Japanese techniques that are so hidden that can completely restart your car and extend its life by hundreds of thousands of kilometers. And the best part is that they work the same in a Nissan, a Toyota, a Volkswagen, or any car. They are so simple that anyone could make them at home, but so powerful that many workshops use them in secret and then charge you as if it were an impossible job. Now, I'll warn you of something. If you apply some of these steps incorrectly, you can damage the car's computer forever. And that's why you stay until the end, because the last trick is the one that decides everything. Doing it right can give your car a second life. Doing it wrong can condemn it forever. Number 17. Recalibrate the throttle body. One of the most common problems in modern cars is loss of power. Sometimes, when you step on the accelerator, the response is slow, erratic, or even unsteady. And many drivers interpret this as a sign that the engine is damaged or that an expensive repair is. However, a little-known trick has been passed down in Japan that can restore a car's vitality in a matter of minutes: recalibrating the throttle body. The throttle body is a key component as it regulates air intake into the engine. Over time, this component becomes dirty with soot, grease, or particles, which affects its precision. Even when cleaned manually, it doesn't always perform at its best because it also requires electronic adjustment for the car's computer to properly recognize it. The Japanese method for recalibrating the car is simple but surprisingly effective. It involves disconnecting the battery fumes, waiting for the electrical systems to discharge, and then performing a specific sequence. Turning the key to the on position without starting the engine, pressing the accelerator pedal fully several times, and finally starting the vehicle. This allows the computer to reinterpret the actual accelerator position and correct any accumulated errors. The effects are noticeable almost immediately. The engine responds more quickly, the idle becomes more stable, and the driving experience feels much smoother. The best part is that it doesn't require special tools or expensive equipment to achieve this, just knowledge and a little patience. In Japan, this procedure is not a luxury, but rather part of a philosophy. Prevention is better than cure, taking care of small things before they become big and expensive problems. If such a simple adjustment can bring your engine back to life, imagine what other Japanese secrets can accomplish. Number 16. Battery and ECU reset. The ECU, or engine control unit, is the brain of the car. It's responsible for regulating the air-fuel mixture, ignition spark, and sensor coordination. However, over time, it begins to accumulate incorrect information, readings from sensors that are already dirty, old data that no longer corresponds to the engine's current state, or even faults that were corrected but remain logged in its memory. All of this results in jerky acceleration, unstable idle, loss of power, and even increased fuel consumption. In Japan, there's a simple but powerful method to address this situation: a battery and ECU reset. The procedure involves disconnecting the car's battery for a few minutes, simultaneously pressing the brake and accelerator pedals to discharge the residual current stored in the system, and finally reconnecting the battery. This seemingly simple gesture forces the ECU to reset its parameter, as if the vehicle had just left the factory. The funny thing is that most drivers don't know that such a simple procedure can rejuvenate their car in minutes. After performing the reset, the change is usually felt immediately. The engine responds more responsively, acceleration is smoother, and in many cases, fuel consumption decreases because the computer is no longer working with old readings. It's like giving the car a second chance to adapt to current conditions. However, Japanese specialists warn that it shouldn't be done constantly. This isn't a trick to be applied every week, but only after major maintenance such as changing spark plugs, filters, or sensors, or when obvious electronic failures appear. In Japan, this procedure is seen as a true clean slate, a way to ensure the vehicle operates with fresh, accurate parameters tailored to its actual condition. Number 15. Cleaning electrical connectors. In modern cars, electricity is just as important as fuel. Every system, from fuel injection to ABS brakes and air conditioning, relies on a network of sensors and electronic modules that require stable connections to function properly. The problem is that, over time, electrical connectors begin to accumulate dust, grease, moisture, and even fine layers of corrosion. These seemingly insignificant details can cause intermittent failures that are very difficult to diagnose and sometimes confuse even the most experienced mechanics. In Japan, cleaning electrical connectors is not an emergency measure, but rather part of regular preventative maintenance. Specially designed dielectric sprays are used to remove residue without damaging electronics. The procedure is simple. Disconnect the connector, apply the product, and reinsert it, ensuring it is firmly seated. In some cases, dielectric grease is also applied, which creates a protective film against moisture and prevents rustation. What seems like a small gesture has a huge impact. A clean connector ensures safe starts, accurate sensor readings, and systems systems that operate accurately. Conversely, a dirty connector can cause problems that appear to be serious failures, loss of power, excessive fuel consumption, or even malfunctions in the braking system. In many Japanese workshops, the first recommendation faced with an electric failure isn't to replace expensive parts, but to check the connectors. This practice reflects the philosophy of attention to detail characteristic of their culture, taking care of the small things to prevent them from becoming big things. Thus, periodic connector cleaning becomes a simple, inexpensive, and highly effective gesture that prolongs the vehicle's lifespan and keeps it reliable under any circumstances. Number 14. Injector cleaning without a workshop. Fuel injectors are responsible for spraying gasoline into the engine with precise precision. If they become clogged with residue or carbon buildup, the vehicle's performance suffers. The engine loses power, fuel consumption increases, and vibrations become more noticeable. Many garages typically recommend expensive professional cleaning, but in Japan, there's a practical way to do it at home without having to go to a garage every time. The secret lies in the use of injector cleaner additives, applied strategically. It's not just a matter of adding any old product to the tank every now and then, but rather doing so at calculated intervals, especially before a long trip or after extensive city driving. These additives dissolve deposits that form on the injectors, improve fuel atomization, and restore engine efficiency. The procedure is simple. Add the cleaner directly to the tank with enough gasoline and drive at a constant speed, preferably on the highway, so that the product circulates evenly. In Japan, it is recommended to repeat this every certain number of kilometers, not as an emergency solution, but as part of routine maintenance. The results are evident. The engine regains smoothness, starts more easily, and fuel consumption stabilizes. In some cases, even minor jerks that seemed like serious malfunctions disappear. Most important, keeping the injectors clean also protects the combustion system as a whole, avoiding major repairs in the future. If keeping injectors clean can transform the way an engine responds, imagine what another Japanese trick designed to take care of even what we can't see can accomplish. Number 13. Change the engine air filter on time. A detail as simple as an air filter can be the invisible line between an engine that breathes freely and one that ages prematurely. A car's engine needs clean air to function properly. However, as the miles go by, the air filter becomes saturated with dust, dirt, pollen, and even microscopic particles that impede proper airflow. When this happens, the engine begins to work harder. It consumes more fuel, loses power, and generates more polluting emissions. In Japan, air filter replacement is not left to chance. Beyond the manufacturer's recommendations, Japanese drivers tend to check it more frequently, especially if they drive in cities with heavy traffic, dusty areas. The trick is not to wait for it to become completely clogged, but to change it before it shows signs of fatigue. This habit prolongs engine, reduces wear on internal components, and improves vehicle efficiency. What's most interesting is that some Japanese workshops use higher quality filters with materials capable of trapping tiny particles without restricting airflow. This allows the engine to maintain its power and performance even under demanding conditions. The benefit isn't just noticeable in power, it's also noticeable in smooth acceleration and long-term fuel economy. Changing an air filter may seem like a minor task, but it's actually one of those details that makes a difference in the overall health of a vehicle. In Japanese maintenance philosophy, this gesture reflects a simple truth: small takes care of the big. Number 12. Use of gasoline cleaning additives. The fuel that reaches the engine is rarely clean. Even if it passes through filtration system, it always carries small impurities, dust, metal particles from the storage tanks, accumulated moisture, and chemical residues that gradually end up deposited in the injection system. As this waste accumulates, the car begins to lose smoothness, fuel consumption increases, and engine response becomes duller. Most drivers tend to wait until the first symptoms appear before acting, seeking quick fixes like a professional cleaning in a garage, which can be expensive. In Japan, however, experienced mechanics and drivers adopt a very different mindset: prevention rather than repair. And that's where this little-known but highly effective trick comes in: the use of gasoline cleaning additives applied at strategic intervals. The secret isn't to add the additive occasionally, but to integrate it into a preventive maintenance schedule. This means adding the product every certain mileage, even when the car isn't showing any obvious problems. This keeps the fuel injection system in optimal condition, preventing residues from forming serious deposits that later require extensive repairs. The procedure is simple. Add the cleaner directly to the tank with enough gasoline and drive at a steady speed, preferably on the highway. By driving steadily, the engine makes better use of the product, allowing it to dissolve accumulated dirt and eliminate it during the combustion cycle. The results are noticeable: faster starts, smoother acceleration, reduced fuel consumption, and, most importantly, a significant extension of the injector's lifespan. Furthermore, this practice reduces the risk of unexpected failures, which often result result in expensive and complicated repairs. The interesting thing about this trick is that it perfectly reflects the Japanese philosophy applied to mechanics: consistency, discipline, and attention to detail. Instead of reacting to a problem, the goal is to keep the vehicle in the best possible condition day after day. In other words, it's a way to ensure your car runs like new for many more years without waiting for a breakdown to occur. Number 11. Check and clean the EGR valve periodically. The EGR, exhaust gas recirculation, is one of those silent but vital components in modern cars. Its main function is to reduce polluting emissions by redirecting part of the exhaust gases back into the combustion chamber, achieving a more controlled and clean combustion. However, this very task makes it a vulnerable point. Over time, the EGR becomes covered with soot, combustion residue, and carbon deposits that obstruct its natural flow. The result is often loss of power, black smoke from the exhaust, high fuel consumption, and an unstable idle that disconcerts the driver. In Japan, checking and cleaning this valve isn't left until a car already has serious problems. It's part of scheduled preventative maintenance, viewed with the same level of importance as changing oil or spark plugs. Japanese mechanics use specialized products capable of dissolving accumulated carbon, disassemble the valve when necessary, and verify that the system is operating freely. This approach prevents small blockages from turning into major failures that can compromise the entire engine. The interesting thing is that, in many cases, the symptoms of a tired engine aren't actually due to the engine itself, but to a dirty EGR valve. Proper cleaning restores lost power, improves acceleration response, and drastically reduces exhaust smoke. It's a simple solution that can transform the driving experience. This gesture also reflects the Japanese philosophy of caring even for the invisible. Most drivers rarely think about the EGR valve, yet its condition defines the balance between efficiency, power, and emissions. A clean valve means less pollution, greater performance, and an engine that runs smoothly. In other words, taking care of the EGR means taking care of the car's overall health. If a simple valve can change the way an engine breathes, wait until you discover what happens when you take care of even more invisible parts, those that hardly anyone checks. Subscribe and join us to discover more secrets that will keep your car looking like new. Number 10. Check and change spark plugs at short intervals. Spark plugs are small parts that perform a gigantic function, igniting the air-fuel mixture inside the engine. Without them, the spark that powers each explosion simply wouldn't occur. Although manufacturers typically recommend replacing them at extended intervals, a different practice is followed in Japan, checking and replacing them more frequently, even before they reach the end of their useful life. The reason is simple. A worn spark plug produces a weak or irregular spark, resulting in difficult starts, vibrations, and increased gas consumption. It can also damage other engine components, as incomplete combustion generates residue that accumulates on the valves and in the exhaust. However, maintaining spark plugs in good condition ensures that the engine runs precisely with clean and balanced combustion. In Japan, spark plugs aren't expected to fail completely. The most careful drivers check them every few thousand miles, looking for signs of wear, soot buildup, or differences in electrode color. A light brown color usually indicates that everything is working properly, while blackened, wet, or worn spark are a sign that it's time to replace them. The procedure is simple and doesn't require sophisticated tools. Remove the spark plug, inspect it, and replace it if necessary. Doing this proactively prevents engine jerks, rough, idle, or loss of acceleration. The most interesting thing is that the cost of spark plugs is relatively low, but the impact of keeping them in optimal condition is enormous for the health of the car. In many Japanese workshops, it is claimed that changing spark plugs frequently is a small investment that significantly extends the life of the engine. This habit once again reflects the Japanese philosophy of attention to detail, taking care of the simplest things to protect the most complex things. Thus, checking and replacing spark plugs early isn't an unnecessary expense, but rather a smart strategy to keep your car always ready, reliable, and efficient without leaving room for unexpected failures. Number 9. Check and clean the cooling system periodically. A car engine runs on internal explosions that generate large amounts of heat. To prevent damage, the cooling system works constantly, keeping the temperature within a safe range. However, over time, the radiator, hoses, and coolant accumulate sediment, rust, and residue, reducing their effectiveness. When this happens, the engine begins to heat up more than normal and is vulnerable to serious failures such as cylinder head warping or premature gasket. In Japan, checking the cooling system is considered a fundamental maintenance step. It's not limited to topping up coolant, but also includes inspecting the fluid quality, cleaning the lines, and replacing the coolant when it has lost its properties. This preventative measure prevents excessive temperature rise and prolongs the life of the entire engine. What many people don't realize realize is that the engine's true enemy isn't always a lack of oil, but rather the silent heat that builds up little by little without any clear signs, until it's too late. The maintenance process includes bleeding the system to remove air bubbles, cleaning the radiator, and checking the hoses for cracks or leaks. Even the thermostat, a small but crucial component that regulates the opening and closing of the fluid flow, is inspected. In Japan, the philosophy is clear. If the engine remains cool and stable, the rest of the mechanical system operates without unnecessary strain. The benefits are immediate: reduced risk of overheating, improved performance over long distances, and increased durability of expensive components. A clean cooling system also means lower emissions, as combustion occurs under optimal conditions. This habit once again reveals the importance of taking care of the invisible details. Although it's not always visible to the naked eye, a healthy cooling system can make the difference between a car that lasts a few years and one that accompanies the driver for decades. Number 8. Lubricate door seals and gaskets periodically. Although many drivers focus their attention on the engine, transmission, or brakes, there are more discrete components that also define the experience of having a car in good condition. One of them is the door seals and gaskets, those rubber strips that seem insignificant but serve vital functions, sealing the passenger compartment, preventing water and wind from entering, and maintaining acoustic comfort inside the vehicle. Over time, these seals dry out, harden, and lose elasticity, causing annoying noises, water leaks, and, in extreme cases, deterioration of the bodywork due to rust. In Japan, the philosophy of preventive care also includes paying attention to these details. The most meticulous drivers regularly apply silicone lubricant to the seals. This simple habit keeps the rubber flexible, hydrated, and able to adapt to the door frame without leaving gaps. Interestingly, it's not just about aesthetics or comfort. A damaged seal can alter the vehicle's aerodynamics and increase fuel consumption due to increased air resistance. The procedure is simple. First, clean the gasket with a damp cloth to remove any dust or dirt. Then, apply a light layer of silicone lubricant in spray or gel form, spreading it with a clean cloth so that it penetrates the entire surface. This maintenance doesn't require any special tools, but its benefits are immediate. The doors close smoothly, squeaks disappear, and the passenger compartment remains insulated from external noise. The most interesting thing is that this habit also prolongs the lifespan of the air conditioning and heating system, as the car maintains its internal temperature better and reduces the strain on the HVAC system. In Japan, it's even recommended to do this more frequently in extreme climates, where cold heat dry out the rubber quickly. Lubricating seals isn't a luxury, but a reminder that small details determine a vehicle's longevity. This practice demonstrates once again that the Japanese philosophy of prevention isn't limited to the engine, but extends to every corner of the car. Number 7. Check and clean the brake system more frequently. The braking system is, without a doubt, the greatest guarantor of safety in a vehicle. Without it, the engine's power is useless. However, many drivers make a serious mistake. They limit themselves to replacing brake pads when they're already worn, and forget the entire system requires periodic maintenance. Dust generated by friction, moisture, and road grime end up accumulating on discs, calipers, and hoses, reducing their effectiveness and shortening the lifespan of each component. In Japan, brake inspection goes far beyond the basics. It's not just about measuring pad thickness, but also disassembling the parts, cleaning, and lubricating the contacts. This ensures that the brakes not only work, but also respond quickly and accurately in any situation. Even the fluid hoses are checked for leaks, and the system is bled periodically, ensuring the brake fluid circulates free of air bubbles. The most surprising thing is that, in many cases, the difference between a safe car and one that endangers lives isn't a powerful engine, but quiet brakes that no one checks until it's too late. This preventive approach has immediate benefits. A clean, well-lubricated brake system prevents annoying squeals, improves response during emergency brake, and prolongs the life of discs and pads. It also reduces the strain on other safety systems, such as ABS, which directly depend on the effectiveness of mechanical brakes. In Japan, the mentality is clear. Safety is non-negotiable. That's why many garages recommend checking brakes every few thousand kilometers, even if there are no obvious signs of wear. This not only prevents accidents, but also reflects the philosophy of addressing invisible details before they become tragedy. Checking and cleaning your brake system frequently may seem like an over-the-top habit, but it's actually an investment in peace of mind and confidence behind the wheel, a sign of respect for both the vehicle and those riding. Number 6. Check the battery status and protect its terminals. The battery is, without a doubt, the electrical heart of a car. Without it, the engine won't start, the electronic system won't work, and the vehicle is completely immobilized. Despite its importance, it's often one of the most neglected components. Many drivers only think about it when the car isn't responding, and by then, the problem is already advanced. In Japan, however, the view is different. The battery is checked periodically and undergoes simple but consistent maintenance to avoid unpleasant surprises. The most common problem with a battery isn't always discharge, as many believe, but rather the buildup of sulfate on the terminal. This whitish layer disrupts the electrical flow, causing dim lights, intermittent failures in the electronic systems, and even the complete inability to start the vehicle. To prevent this, Japanese mechanics recommend cleaning the terminals with special brushes designed to remove corrosion and then applying dielectric grease. This creates a protective film that prevents the formation of new deposits and ensures a firm and long-lasting connection. The inspection, however, is not limited to the terminals. The battery's charge level and overall health are also periodically monitored using multimeters or specialized equipment. This allows voltage drops to be detected before they become critical failures. In Japan, this practice reflects the philosophy of anticipating problems, identifying and correcting them before something completely fails, rather than reacting too late. Another important aspect is battery fastening. If it's not properly secured, engine vibrations accelerate internal wear and drastically reduce its lifespan. A properly secured battery not only lasts longer, but also performs more stably. The most interesting thing is that keeping the battery in good condition indirectly protects the rest of the vehicle's electrical system. Sensors, modules, and control units depend on a constant and stable supply of power. A weak battery not only affects starting, but can also trigger chain failures that are difficult and expensive to diagnose. Ultimately, taking care of this component protects the entire electrical ecosystem of car. And if you thought these tricks were just technical details, wait until you discover how the sum of small Japanese practices can completely transform the lifespan of a car, making it last much longer than you imagine. Number 5. Belts and timing chain. Inside an engine, there are parts whose function is invisible to most drivers, but they are responsible for ensuring everything runs smooth. These parts include the belts and, in some models, the timing chain. Their task is fundamental, synchronizing the movement of the valves and pistons so that the engine operates with millimeter precision. If they fail, the consequences can be catastrophic, ranging from complete loss of timing to irreversible damage to the cylinder head and piston. The problem is that many drivers tend to forget about their existence, trusting that they'll last forever. In Japan, however, preventive philosophy dictates the opposite. Periodically inspect both the belts and the timing chain. In the case of rubber belts, their visual condition is checking for cracks, hardening, or excessive wear. Although manufacturers indicate a specific mileage for placement, in Japan it's common to do so ahead of schedule if even the slightest sign of deterioration detected. It's a small expense compared to what a damaged engine would entail. Auxiliary belts, which drive components such as the alternator, water pump, and air conditioning compressor, also receive attention. Their wear may seem minor, but a broken belt can cause overheating, battery loss, or even complete vehicle downtime. But as for the timing chain, although it's more durable and typically lasts longer than belts, it's not without its problems. Japanese mechanics regularly check its tension and lubrication, as a loose or poorly lubricated chain generates metallic noises and can disrupt engine time. Detecting these symptoms early prolongs engine life and prevents extremely costly repairs. The benefit of this practice is clear. An engine that works in harmony with less vibration, greater efficiency, and a lower risk of unexpected failures. Furthermore, keeping these parts in good condition improves the car's overall performance and long-term reliability. Ultimately, checking belts and chains isn't a luxury, but a responsible habit. In Japan, it's understood that taking care of the invisible is just as important as the visible, because a single neglected belt can mean the life or death of an entire engine. Number 4. Engine ventilation system. A car's engine is like a living organism. It breathes, generates heat, and needs to release gases that accumulate inside. An essential part of this process is the ventilation system, especially the PCV, positive crankcase ventilation valve. This small component allows unwanted crankcase gases to return to the combustion system, where they are burned instead of accumulating. It sounds simple, but its proper functioning is vital to the health of the engine. When the PCV valve or breather hoses become clogged with oil residue and carbon deposits, the engine begins to suffer. Symptoms include excessive oil consumption, loss of power, and even gasket and seal leaks due to increased internal pressure. In extreme cases, poor ventilation can lead to serious damage that directly affects the engine's longevity. In Japan, checking and cleaning this system is a routine preventive maintenance step. Mechanics typically remove the PCV valve, clean it with specific products, and, if it's too worn, replace it before it causes major problems. They also inspect the connected hoses, ensuring they're not cracked or heat hardened. This work, which often goes unnoticed in other countries, reflects Japan's attention to detail and commitment to mechanical durability. The benefits of this practice are immediate: a more stable engine, lower oil consumption, reduced emissions, and a more efficient efficient combustion system. It also prolongs the life of gaskets and seals by maintaining balanced internal pressure. Taking care of your engine's ventilation system may seem insignificant, but it's one of those habits that makes the difference between a car that ages prematurely and one that maintains its performance for decades. The most shocking thing is that, although these tips seem like simple details, the following ones reveal secrets that could forever change the way you understand car care. Number 3. Power steering system. The power steering system is one of the main factors responsible for driving comfort. Thanks to it, turning the wheel in a modern car feels light and precise, even at low speeds. However, behind that ease lies a set of components that require constant attention. The power steering pump, hoses, fluid reservoir, and, in some models, electric actuators. Neglecting this system can lead to progressive failures that end up costing much more than you imagine. In Japan, power steering maintenance is part of regular vehicle checks. One of the most important steps is checking the level and condition of the hydraulic fluid. Over time, this fluid loses properties, becomes contaminated with metal particles, and can cause premature wear of the pump. Therefore, Japanese mechanics recommend changing it at defined intervals, even before it shows obvious signs of deterioration. Another key point is the visual inspection of hoses and connections. Even the smallest fluid leak not only reduces steering efficiency, but can cause irreversible damage to the pump if it runs dry. Anticipating these types of problems prevents major repairs and ensures safe operation. In vehicles with electric power steering, which dispense with hydraulic fluid, the focus is on checking the assistance software and the integrity of the sensors. A failure in these components can result in a sudden stiffness in the steering, with dangerous consequences if it occurs while driving. In Japan, specialized workshops ensure that these systems are always up to date and operating at optimal parameters. The benefits of this maintenance are multiple: greater maneuvering precision, reduced tire and suspension, and a safer and more reliable driving experience. Furthermore, maintaining the power steering in good condition contributes to the overall durability of the vehicle, as a system in poor condition forces other components to work harder. Ultimate power steering maintenance reflects a philosophy of prevention, addressing what seems invisible but is essential for vehicle control and safety. Number 2. Protect the vehicle's ground connections. In most modern, the ground connection, the points where the car's electrical system connects to the chassis to complete the circuit, are largely forgotten. Yet, the stable operation of all electronic systems depends on, from the ECU to the ignition system, lights, and engine sensors. In Japan, mechanics know that a corroded or loose ground connection can cause intermittent electrical failures, dashboard lights flashing for no reason, loss of power, or even trouble starting the vehicle. What's worse, many shops end up replacing expensive parts when the real problem was simply a rusty connection. The Japanese procedure is simple but very effective. Locate the main ground connections of the vehicle, usually in the battery, engine, and chassis. Disassemble and clean them with a wire brush to remove rust and dirt. Apply dielectric grease or protective paint to prevent moisture causing further corrosion. Check that all screws are tight to ensure perfect electrical contact. The results are astonishing. Starting becomes more reliable. Unusual electrical faults disappear, and the car's electronics operate more stably. It's a gesture that costs very little time and money, but it can prevent breakdowns that in other countries end up being very costly. In Japan, they have it clear. Electricity is the blood of the car, and ground connections are its veins. Keeping them clean and firm means having a more reliable, efficient, and long-lasting car. Number 1. Check the cooling system and change the coolant on time. The cooling system is probably one of the most underestimated systems in a car, even though its function is essential, keeping the engine at the right temperature. Without an efficient system, the heat generated during combustion would eventually damage the piston, cylinder head, and other vital components. Curiously, in many countries, drivers often limit themselves to checking the water level in the radiator, without considering that this approach is insufficient and even risky. In Japan, cooling system maintenance is a priority aspect of preventative maintenance. Instead of using just water, quality coolant is used, formulated to withstand high temperatures and prevent internal corrosion. This fluid, in addition to regulating temperature, protects the lines and prevents the formation of scale that can clog the radiator over time. Changing it at regular intervals is common practice, as it loses properties after several thousand kilometers. The inspection also includes the condition of the hoses and clamps. Under heat and pressure, hoses can crack or harden, causing leaks that compromise the entire system. In Japan, they are replaced at the slightest sign of wear, even if they haven't yet failed, reflecting the philosophy of prevention rather than repair. Another crucial element is the thermostat, which regulates cooling coolant flow. When it fails, the engine can overheat or run constantly cold, affecting both performance and fuel consumption. Checking and replacing the thermostat on time ensures stable and efficient operation. Finally, the radiator and water pump also receive special attention. Cleaning the radiator allows air to flow more easily, while the pump ensures constant coolant circulation. In Japan, these components are part of a comprehensive control system that prevents the engine from overheating, one of the most serious and costly breakdowns. In conclusion, maintaining your cooling system isn't a minor detail, but rather one of the keys to extending your engine's lifespan. With quality fluid, regular checkups, and preventive replacements, you can ensure your car always runs in optimal condition and safe. Throughout this journey, we've discovered how simple practices, inspired by Japanese discipline and precision, can make a difference in a car's lifespan. From recalibrating the throttle body to caring for the battery, including connector cleaning, the preventive use of additives, and attention to critical systems like cooling, power steering, it's clear that the key isn't waiting for something to fail, but rather anticipating. The fascinating thing is that many of these habits don't require large investments or sophisticated tools. Rather, it's a philosophy, keeping your car in balance, paying attention to both the visible and the invisible. Doing so not only prolongs its performance and reliability, but also avoids unnecessary expenses on major repairs. And here's the crux of the matter. Taking care of a car isn't just a matter of mechanics. It's also an act of respect for the time, effort, and investment it represents. In Japan, they understand this well. The sum of small details can completely transform the driving experience. This video won't do you any good if you don't see how the Japanese make their cars last forever.